Hello everyone and welcome to our Tech Tuesday tutorials number 90. Today we pick up from last week's video on Twine by looking at variables. If you haven't seen the first video on Twine, please take a moment and click on the card in the top right corner of this video to go watch that first. You will need the basic understanding of Twine before moving on to this one. So in this sequel video, we will take a closer look at variables and how they can help you and your students introduce some seriously cool options for the story. Due to time constraints, this video will touch on the basics of variables. I'll add the links in the description for more in-depth articles for the more hardcore designers out there. As a reminder, variables can be used to store bits of changing information, like names, attributes, items, or even abstract things like how many turns you have left, what your trust is with a certain character, how much stamina you have, or how many victories you've achieved. We pick up where we left off last week's story design, where we have 3 choices for the reader. So for this example of variables, what we're going to do is we're going to take a situation where we're going to take the right-hand tunnel here. It's going to lead to a locked door, and they need to have a key. That's the variable. Do they have a key? Yes or no, true or false. And we're going to then find that key in the left tunnel. So what we have to do is set a variable first before they head into that right tunnel and run into the locked door, or before they head into the left tunnel and find the key and it changes to true or false. So you set up variables by using a macro called set, and then use $sign in front of the key. So I could do that here, and I can just come in here and say, okay, this is going to be a macro. The macros start off with paragraphs, signs. So set, and you'll see it immediately italicizes $key. So I'm setting key to false, and close that up. That will not show up if we decide to play this passage. Anything in those parentheses that are basically commands are not seen as actual text. So that works. We set the key to false here. The problem is if we go down the right-hand tunnel and then we come back to this, we're fine. If we go down the left-hand tunnel and we pick up the key and then key becomes true, if I come back to this page, it then sets it to false again. So I actually need to have this key set earlier. Ideally, some of your variables, you want to put them at the very beginning, kind of like initiated variables, things that are going to be set at the beginning of the story. And knowing that we're not going to come back to the very beginning of the story again, we're just going to be either coming back to the entrance or the cave, then this is a safe place to put a lot of your variables, knowing that they're not going to kind of get reset. In fact, some people even have a startup page that they'll do before any decisions are made that kind of just gives some background saying, hey, you know, this story was written by me, here's some credits and so on. And in there is where they put a lot of their initial variables that they know they're going to come up with. So at the very beginning, we set the key to false. We do not have the key. So at some point I come over here and say, all right, if they take the tunnel to the right, we find a locked door if only you had a key. And so I can then put in a choice that only appears if they have a key. So one of the things I can do in here is I can give the static one that takes them back to the passage before, which is go back to the cave. So I can just come in here and put that in there, go back to the cave. So what do I put for my other option if they do have the key? Well, I can then put in another thing here and just say if $key, which is the variable, is true, then whatever I put after this will show up. So I can say use the key you found to open the lock, right? All right, so if I play it, you find a locked door, go back. Where is the second option? It's not there because key is currently not true. So how do we make it as true? So they took the right-hand tunnel, it's locked. They took the left-hand tunnel, and I wrote something here saying you enter a large cavern, it's mostly empty. You're going to have the option to go back to the cave, which is back to that same choice, or look around the cavern. So if we play that, that's what this looks like. And I'm going to say, okay, in look around the cavern, you find a silver key. Maybe it fits a lock. Then the choice here may not be anything. I may just have this take me back initial choice before of explore the cave. But now I need to set that variable so that the key is true. Having the key is true. And that's done the same way I did before. I just parentheses set command $key to true. Let's try this out. So this looks a little complicated, but it's really not that bad. I come to this decision. Currently, I don't have a key. I go to the right-hand tunnel. It says you found a locked door. If only you had a key. No option shows up because the key is false. I go to the left-hand tunnel. You enter a large cavern. It's mostly empty. Well, I can go back to the cave again. I go to the left-hand tunnel, and this time I say, let's look around the cavern. I click on that, you find a silver key, maybe it fits a lock. At this point, my variable has been set, and let's go back to the cave and take the right-hand tunnel. And now I have the option to use the key you found to open the lock, because that was set as true. See it visually, we come here, it's currently false. When we get here, it checks to see if it's true or false. If it's false, we don't get the option to open. We come over here, and when we look around the cavern, that sets key to true, and at that point I can continue on. So setting variables is really not as hard as it seems. You say set, colon, and then $, the name of the value, and what you set it to. The same goes if you want to check something. Before the paragraph that you're about to type, you just put if this variable is blank, then they see this paragraph. Now, this doesn't have to be a choice. This could be anything else. This could be only if they have a light do they notice something up on the ceiling. You know, only if they're playing the wizard, if their class is wizard, do they notice or can they read the arcane writings on the wall. Only if they have established trust with someone, a certain character, does that certain character then mention something else to them. I mean, there's so much you can do with these variables, and at the heart of it, it's fairly easy. What excites me about the variables, and we'll get more into, maybe a later video, we'll get more into more advanced things with Twine, but what excites me with just these basic variables, because you can actually make variables count. Like you can have a variable be a number and it counts up. You can have a variable be a string, like which friend are you taking with you, John or Joe or Mary? You know, you can do a lot with that. But what excites me about just the basics of this is that this is programmatic thinking. It's not really code. I mean, this is pretty simple code if you were to call it code. But with the computer science requirement coming for all Georgia schools, with STEM being a big deal, wanting to have writing and reading across the curriculum, there's a whole lot you can be doing here to let kids dip their toe into this kind of thinking, this kind of writing. And I tell you, you let kids go with their own story that they has branching decisions and so on. It's so much more interesting. It's especially good for younger writers or less savvy writers, because sometimes trying to decide what to do in a story is the hard part. With this, you get to play with different things, and you can really kind of stretch your brain a bit, because like with this cavern of time, this cave of time, I mean, we could go back to the Middle Ages or go into the future or do what else. You could at the beginning have them a choice saying, are you playing the kid Dante and this is what he's like, or are you playing, you know, Amelia and this is what she's like? And they could have different skill sets tracked by variables, and they could say, oh, well, you know, Dante's able to lift this rock and Amelia's not, but she can fit into this little tiny crevasse and get through to this other room. There may be whole areas in the story that you can only experience if you make a certain choice or if you choose a certain character. All right, so I could go on and on about this. I think we've gone on much longer than I initially intended. Get out there and try Twinery. I think it's really awesome. All right, so I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I hope you found it useful. And if you did, click that like button. Why not support us? Click that subscribe button. Click on the bell icon to receive email notifications anytime a video goes up. Leave a comment or idea for a Tech Tuesday video below. Share this video with your friends, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.